"This is private property," the voice snapped before I'd even killed the engine. "You need to leave immediately." I looked up from my truck at the woman standing beside my broken gate, her crimson blazer and black pencil skirt looking absurdly formal against the mud and sawdust. Behind her, 2 men in HOA polo shirts were loading the last of my walnut logs. 30 logs, 8 months of work onto a flatbed truck. "Funny," I said, stepping out slowly. "That's exactly what I was about to tell you." She raised her clipboard like a shield, her perfectly styled blonde hair not even moving in the January wind. "Sir, you cannot interfere with official HOA confiscation proceedings." I walked straight toward her, boots crunching on frozen ground. "Lady, those are my logs. Hand-selected, purchased, and delivered to my property. What you're doing is called theft." Her lips twisted into something between a smile and a sneer. "The Riverside Meadows Homeowners Association has determined this lumber was illegally harvested from our protected woodland area. We have documentation." "Documentation?" I stopped 3 feet from her, close enough to see her jaw tighten. "You cut my security cameras, broke my lock, and stole $42,000 worth of timber. That's not documentation. That's burglary." She scribbled something on her clipboard. "Any complaints can be filed through proper channels, Mr. Brennan." The flatbed's engine roared to life behind her. The last log, my last log, with my brand mark still visible on the end, bounced once before settling into the pile. "Yeah," I said, my voice dropping to something cold and quiet. "Those channels start with the police." She waved at the driver. The truck rolled away, tires grinding through mud, carrying 8 months of my life toward whatever monument to suburban power they were building this time. I watched until the taillights disappeared past the tree line. Then it was just me, the torn ground, and the sound of wind moving through the empty space where my future had been stacked. That silence did something to me. Not rage, not yet. Something colder, like the moment before a storm when the air feels charged and every animal hides. I walked the property slowly, tracing the tire ruts, examining the cut camera wires. Professional, organized. They'd known exactly where to go, exactly what they were doing. By the time I got back to my truck, that cold feeling had started turning to heat. "My name is Marcus Brennan. I'm a furniture maker, high-end custom work, the kind where clients pay 5 figures for a dining table that'll last 3 generations. I'd spent 8 months sourcing those walnut logs from a sustainable timber operation in Pennsylvania, had them shipped to my 5-acre property in Riverside Meadows, Virginia, just outside Richmond. Every log was documented. Certified sustainable harvest, legal transport, proper storage. I'd even paid extra for key line drying to start while they waited. Those logs were supposed to become my masterpiece collection. A series of live-edge tables, a statement bookcase, maybe a few sculptural pieces for a gallery show I'd been planning. Now they were being used to build some HOA gazebo or whatever monument to suburban conformity they'd dreamed up this month. I sat in my truck and dialed the Henrico County Sheriff's Department. Kept my voice steady as I reported it. Forced entry. Theft of property valued at $42,000. Evidence of planning and coordination. The dispatcher promised a deputy within 2 hours. I waited, watching the spot where the logs had been, feeling that cold anger settle deeper. The deputy who showed up was young, maybe 26, fresh-faced, good boots, tired eyes. He walked the perimeter, took photos, asked the right questions. I handed him everything: receipts, bills of lading, delivery manifests, even GPS tracking data from the hauler. All legal, all documented. He whistled low. "You're saying the Riverside Meadows HOA did this?" "Their president's name is on the letter they left." I showed him the notice official HOA letterhead signed by someone named Diane Carlisle. "Says they confiscated my timber for unauthorized harvest from protected land, but you've got proof you bought it legally. Every log. Purchase orders, shipping records, the works." He nodded slowly. "We'll file a report. But Mr. Brennan, I gotta be honest, HOA disputes can get complicated. Jurisdictional issues, civil versus criminal. This isn't a dispute about mailbox colors," I said, This is organized theft. I know. I'm just saying it might take time. Time. That word hung in the air like smoke. Time meant they'd finish whatever they were building. Time meant evidence disappearing. Time meant justice delayed. When the deputy left, the sun was setting, painting the snow blood orange. I stood there until the cold bit through my jacket, then climbed back into the truck. The smell of walnut, that rich, chocolate-brown scent, still clung to the air. 4 days later, the second letter arrived. Plain envelope, Riverside Meadows, HOA, embossed seal, no return address. You are hereby notified that lumber confiscated from your property on the 14th of January 2025 has been designated as community improvement materials. Said timber was determined to be illegally harvested from HOA-protected woodland. Any claims to ownership must be substantiated through proper HOA review channels within 30 days. I read it twice. Then I laughed a short, sharp bark of disbelief that turned into something darker. They weren't just thieves, they were bureaucrats who thought a rubber stamp could erase property rights. I slammed my fist into the hood of my truck hard enough to split the skin on my knuckles. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer and stared at the empty space where my workshop dreams had been stacked. The January wind off the James River cut through everything. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I'm not a fighter by nature. I'm a craftsman. I solve problems with precision, patience, and the right tools. But when someone steals your work, your actual physical labor, something fundamental breaks loose inside you. Not rage, clarity. I spent that weekend building my case the way I'd build a dovetail joint. Methodical, tight, unbreakable. First stop, the timber company in Pennsylvania. I drove up there myself, 8 hours through January, sleet, and sat down with the owner in his office that smelled like sawdust and coffee. Everything's documented, he said, pulling files. Sustainable harvest certification, state forestry approval, shipping manifests with GPS tracking from our yard to your property in Virginia. No stops, no detours. I need copies. All of it. He looked at me over his reading glasses. Someone trying to say you did something wrong? Someone's trying to say I stole from them what I actually bought from you. He shook his head. How'd you guess? Seen it before. Power-drunk suburban dictators who think they run the world. He started printing documents. You fight them, son. I'll testify if you need it. By the time I got back to Virginia, I had a 3-inch binder of documentation. Every receipt, every certification, every GPS ping from the delivery truck. A paper trail that didn't just prove ownership, it proved impossibility. Those logs couldn't have come from Riverside Meadows because they'd never been anywhere near the place until they were delivered to my property. Next stop, legal firepower. Catherine Reeves was the kind of attorney who made HOAs nervous. Property rights specialist, reputation for taking down overzealous associations, office that smelled like leather and determination. So, she said, flipping through my documentation, they stole your timber, filed a fake environmental report, and are now building with your materials. That's the situation, she smiled. Not friendly. Predatory. Good. That's much better for us than if they'd been smart about it. Within 48 hours, we'd filed a civil suit against Riverside Meadows HOA and Diane Carlisle personally. Unlawful conversion, trespass, property damage, fraud. Catherine even added emotional distress because, as she said, if they stole your piece, they can pay for it. The kicker was the emergency injunction to halt construction on their community pavilion. We'll serve notice tomorrow, Catherine said. And Marcus? Document everything from here on out. Photos, dates, interactions, everything. That night, I drove past the HOA community center. The construction site was lit up like a stadium they were working overtime, and through my binoculars, I could see my walnut logs. The distinctive grain, the size, even the discoloration patterns, I'd memorized from 8 months of looking at them every day. They were building their pavilion with my stolen timber. I took 60 photos, sent them to Catherine before I even pulled out of the parking lot. Emergency hearing, she texted back. Tomorrow morning. But they didn't stop. If anything, they accelerated. So, I went nuclear. I'd avoided social media for years, preferred working with my hands to typing, but that night, I created accounts everywhere, posted the whole story, photos, receipts, HOA letters, construction images, headline, HOA stole $42,000 worth of timber from my property and claimed I stole it from them. Here's the proof. By morning, it had exploded. Thousands of shares. Comments flooding in from people with their own HOA horror stories. A local Richmond news blog picked it up. Furniture maker claims HOA theft, has receipts to prove it. They interviewed me in front of my empty lot, camera rolling, my face .com, but my voice steel. They didn't just steal lumber, I said. They stole 8 months of work. They stole pieces that were going to feed my family, and they did it thinking no one would fight back. What do you want? The reporter asked. My timber back, and I want to make sure they never do this to anyone else. The inbox exploded after that. Former Riverside Meadows residents reaching out with their own stories. One couple said Diane Carlisle had fined them $3,000 for painting their door the wrong shade of navy. Another said she'd forced them to remove a vegetable garden because it lowered property. A woman sent me photos of Diane taking pictures through her windows to document landscaping violations. This wasn't a homeowners association. It was a fiefdom run by a suburban dictator. And I'd just declared war. The emergency hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. I showed up in my best suit, the one I wore to gallery openings with Catherine beside me carrying 2 briefcases of evidence. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Fluorescent lights, wood paneling, that institutional smell of floor polish and old files. Diane Carlisle sat at the defendant's table in her signature red blazer and black skirt, flanked by 2 attorneys who looked expensive and worried. She didn't look at me. Kept her eyes forward, jaw set, like she could will this all away through sheer force of denial. The judge was an older woman, sharp-eyed, reading glasses perched on her nose. She flipped through the initial filings with an expression that gave nothing away. Let's begin, she said. Miss Reeves, you're seeking an emergency injunction? Catherine stood, and the room quieted instantly. She had that effect, the kind of presence that made people lean forward. Yes, Your Honor. To halt construction on the Riverside Meadows Community Pavilion, which is being built with my client's stolen property. One of Diane's attorneys stood immediately. Objection, Your Honor. Stolen is inflammatory language. It's accurate language, Catherine cut in. My client has documentation proving he legally purchased and received delivery of 30 walnut logs. The defendant confiscated those logs from his property without legal authority and is currently using them for HOA construction. She slid the first exhibit forward, my purchase orders from Pennsylvania, complete with photos of the logs being loaded onto the delivery truck. Serial numbers, Catherine said. Each log was photographed and numbered by the timber company. We can match every single piece. The judge studied the documents. And the HOA's claim is? Diane's attorney cleared his throat. That the timber was illegally harvested from protected HOA woodland and subsequently concealed on Mr. Brennan's property. Do you have evidence of this illegal harvest? We have a detailed environmental assessment conducted by our HOA Environmental Committee. May I see it? There was a pause, papers, shuffling. Then Diane's attorney produced a thin folder, maybe 5 pages total. The judge read it in under a minute. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten slightly. This is signed by, she checked the name, Barbara Chen, HOA Environmental Chair. What are Miss Chen's credentials? Another pause. She's a longtime resident with deep commitment to environmental preservation. That's not what I asked. What are her professional qualifications in forestry, environmental science, or timber assessment? Silence. The judge set the papers down. Miss Reeves, your evidence? Catherine was already moving. She pulled out the GPS tracking data, a map showing the delivery truck's route from Pennsylvania to my property. No stops. no detours. A straight line. This timber never went near the HOA's protected woodland, Catherine said. It came from a sustainable forestry operation 8 hours away. We have certification, harvest permits, transport logs, everything. She slid forward another exhibit. Photos I'd taken of the construction site zoomed in on the walnut logs showing the serial numbers. These numbers match Mr. Brennan's purchase records exactly. Diane's attorney was scrambling now. Your Honor, the Pavilion project is a community improvement that benefits all residents with stolen materials, the judge interrupted. That's what you're describing. Using stolen materials for community benefit. We dispute the characterization of theft, then provide evidence. The judge's voice was sharp. Show me proof that this timber came from your protected woodland. Harvest records, stump documentation, timber assessments. Anything beyond a 5-page memo from an unqualified environmental committee. More silence. The judge removed her glasses. Here's what I see. Detailed documentation of legal purchase and delivery on one side. On the other side, a vague accusation without supporting evidence. Miss Reeves, your injunction is granted. Construction on the pavilion is halted effective immediately. All materials are to be secured as potential evidence. Diane's face went pale, but she didn't move. Didn't speak. Furthermore, the judge continued, given the substantial evidence of potential conversion of property, I'm referring this matter to the Commonwealth's attorney for possible criminal charges. We're adjourned. The gavel came down like thunder. In the hallway outside, reporters were already waiting. Camera flashes, microphones thrust forward. Mr. Brennan, how does it feel? I kept walking. It feels like the beginning, not the end. What do you mean? I stopped. Looked at the camera. Getting an injunction is step 1. Getting my timber back is step 2. Making sure they can't do this to anyone else? That's step 3. Catherine pulled me aside before we left the courthouse. You know this isn't over, right? They're going to fight. They have money, resources. They have bureaucracy. I said, I have proof. There's a difference. She smiled. Good, because it's about to get ugly. She wasn't wrong. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a man's voice, smooth, practiced, threatening, said, Mr. Brennan, you're making things difficult for a lot of people. Maybe it's time to consider a settlement. We can make this go away quietly. Who is this? Someone who's trying to help you avoid a long, expensive legal battle. I almost laughed. You mean someone who's trying to help Diane Carlisle avoid prison? Tell her I said no. You're making a mistake. I hung up. 2 hours later, Catherine called. They just filed a countersuit. Defamation, harassment, emotional distress. Standard intimidation playbook. How much? They're asking for $200,000. I sat down hard. They steal from me and then sue me for talking about it? That's exactly what they're doing. But Marcus, this is good for us. It shows desperation, and it gives us more ammunition. How? Because now we can depose all of them. Diane, her board members, the contractors, everyone. Under oath. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer, staring at the empty space where my logs had been. The February wind was bitter, but I barely felt it. They wanted to play hardball? Fine. I'd spent 20 years learning to work with wood, understanding grain, direction, stress points, where things break and where they hold. Legal strategy wasn't that different. Find the weak spots, apply pressure, watch the structure fail, and Diane Carlisle's structure was already showing cracks. The next break came from an unexpected source. I was in my workshop trying to focus on a commissioned piece, trying not to think about the trial when someone knocked on my door. A man stood there, maybe 60, wearing work clothes and carrying a folder. Marcus Brennan? Yeah. Name's Tom Whitaker. I'm on the HOA board. Or I was, until this morning. I studied him. Why are you here? Because I'm done watching Diane destroy people. He held out the folder. This is everything. Meeting minutes, email chains, financial records, the whole rotten story. I took the folder. Why now? Because I watched her plan this, watched her convince the board that you were some kind of environmental criminal, watched her fabricate evidence and coordinate the theft. I went along with it because... He stopped, jaw working. Because I was a coward, but seeing you fight back, that changed something. You're willing to testify? To all of it. The planning meetings, the fake environmental reports, how she used HOA funds to pay for the theft, everything. After he left, I opened the folder. It was a bomb. Email thread showing Diane writing, "We need to move quickly before he gets those logs secured. If we wait, he'll build something that violates our aesthetic standards, and we'll have to fight him anyway. Better to remove the temptation." Another board member responding, "But Tom, they're his logs. He bought them legally." Diane's reply, "Legally purchased doesn't mean legally harvested. We'll figure out the paperwork after." There it was. Premeditated theft. Conspiracy. Fraud. I called Catherine immediately. She answered on the first ring. "I have a whistleblower," I said, "with documents. How good? Smoking gun good. Silence." Then, "Bring everything to my office. Now." By that evening, we'd compiled it into a supplementary filing. Catherine worked like a surgeon, precise, ruthless, cutting away every excuse Diane might try to hide behind. "This isn't just civil anymore," she said. "This is criminal conspiracy. Conversion of property. Fraud. They're looking at serious charges." "Good." She looked up at me. "Marcus, I need to ask, how far are you willing to take this?" "All the way. She needs to understand that stealing from people has consequences, even if it means testifying, depositions, media attention. Especially then, because the next person she tries this on needs to know someone fought back." The deposition started 2 weeks later. First up was Barbara Chen, the so-called environmental expert who'd signed the fake assessment. She was a retired dental hygienist with zero forestry training. Under oath, she admitted she'd never actually inspected my logs, never visited the supposed harvest site, had simply signed the document Diane put in front of her because she said it was standard procedure. Next was David Carlisle, Diane's son, who'd coordinated the actual theft. He was a contractor in his 30s, cocky until Catherine started asking questions. "You organized the removal of Mr. Brennan's timber, correct?" "I coordinated the recovery of illegally harvested materials. Yes, recovery. Interesting word choice." Catherine slid a document across the table. "This is an email from your mother, dated 3 days before the recovery." She writes, "David, we need the flatbed and crew ready for Thursday morning. Make sure they know to move fast." "That doesn't sound like an official investigation. That sounds like planning a theft," his lawyer interjected. But the damage was done. His face had gone red. Then came Diane herself. She walked into the conference room in a navy suit, this time the red blazer apparently retired after becoming too recognizable from news coverage. Her posture was rigid, her expression carefully neutral. Catherine didn't waste time. "Miss Carlisle, when did you first become aware of timber on Mr. Brennan's property?" "Last October. A resident reported seeing unauthorized materials." "Unauthorized how?" "They appeared to be from our protected woodland." "Based on what evidence?" Pause. "Visual assessment." "By whom?" "By concerned residents." "Residents with forestry expertise?" Diane's jaw tightened. "It doesn't take expertise to recognize." "Actually, it does," Catherine interrupted. "Mr. Brennan's timber came from Pennsylvania. Certified sustainable harvest. The species composition doesn't even match your local woodland. Did you verify that before you confiscated his property?" "We relied on our environmental committee's assessment." "The assessment signed by a retired dental hygienist?" Silence. Catherine pulled out the email chains. "Let's talk about these communications. The 18th of November, 2024. You wrote, 'We need to move quickly before he gets those logs secured.' Why the urgency if you were conducting a legitimate investigation?" "I wanted to preserve potential evidence." "Or you wanted to steal his timber before he could use it?" "That's not December 3rd. You wrote, 'David, make sure the crew knows to move fast. We can't give him time to lawyer up.' Does that sound like evidence preservation or theft? We were acting within HOA authority. You have no authority to seize private property without due process. You're not law enforcement. You're a homeowners association president who decided she was above the law. The deposition ended with Diane stone-faced and silent, her lawyers frantically taking notes. In the hallway, Catherine said, "We've got her. The depositions, the documents, everything. They're going to want to settle. I don't want settlement. I want justice. Marcus, she stole from me, lied about me, tried to intimidate me. She needs to face criminal charges, not write a check and walk away." Catherine studied me for a moment. "Okay, then we go all the way." The trial was set for May. By March, the story had gone national. Cable news, newspaper features, even a podcast episode about HOA overreach. I'd become the face of property rights versus suburban tyranny. People recognized me at the grocery store, stopped me to share their own HOA horror stories, offered to donate to my legal fund, which I didn't have and didn't need, but the support meant something. The week before trial, I got a call from Tom Whitaker, the whistleblower. "They're trying to settle," he said. "Offered me $50,000 to recant my testimony. Are you going to?" "Hell no, but you should know they're desperate. They're going to come at you hard. Let them." The trial started on the 6th of May 2025 in Henrico County Circuit Court. I'd been to courtrooms before property disputes, building permits, the bureaucratic machinery of construction work, but this felt different. This was personal. This was 8 months of rage and persistence distilled into one moment. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled. Reporters in the back rows, neighbors from Riverside Meadows, people I'd never met who'd followed the story online. The air hummed with that particular tension you only get when everyone knows something significant is about to happen. Diane sat at the defense table, flanked by 3 attorneys who looked like they charged by the hour and dressed by the conference. She'd chosen a professional gray suit, no red blazer this time, no power playing. She looked smaller somehow, older, like the weight of what was coming had already started crushing her. The judge, a distinguished black man in his 60s named Harrison, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that missed nothing, called us to order. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a civil trial concerning alleged conversion of property. Let's proceed with opening statements." Catherine stood, and the room quieted instantly. She had that effect, the kind of presence that made people lean forward. "Your Honor, members of the jury, this case is remarkably simple despite the defense's attempts to complicate it. Mr. Brennan legally purchased timber. Miss Carlisle illegally took it. Everything else is just noise designed to obscure theft." She walked to the evidence table, picked up a thick binder. "This is documentation. Purchase orders dated August 2024. Shipping manifests with GPS tracking showing delivery from Pennsylvania to Mr. Brennan's property in January 2025. Serial numbers on every log. Certified sustainable harvest permits. Every piece of paper you need to prove legal ownership." She set it down with a decisive thud. The defense will claim they were protecting HOA property. They'll talk about environmental concerns and community standards. But the evidence, emails, testimony, video footage shows this was never about the environment. It was about control. About punishing a resident who dared to do something without asking permission first. She let that hang in the air for a moment. By the end of this trial, you'll see that Miss Carlisle committed theft. Deliberate, premeditated, organized theft. And she did it believing her title and clipboard made her above the law. Diane's lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Peterson with a tan that screamed expensive vacation, stood for the defense. "Your Honor, members of the jury, the Homeowners Association has a duty, a legal and moral duty, to protect community resources. When credible reports suggested illegal harvest from protected land, the board acted responsibly to investigate and preserve those materials pending verification." His voice was smooth, practiced, but I heard the uncertainty underneath. The lawyer who knows his client is guilty but has to mount a defense anyway. "Miss, Carlisle didn't act recklessly or maliciously. She acted as a responsible community leader, responding to what appeared to be environmental violation. Any mistakes made were good faith errors, not crimes. Catherine was already shaking her head before he finished. The first witness was Harold Matthews, the timber company owner from Pennsylvania. Mid-60s, work-worn hands, the kind of guy who'd spent his life in forests and didn't suffer fools. Catherine walked him through the basics: harvest dates, certification process, delivery logistics. Mr. Matthews, can you describe the process of how Mr. Brennan's timber was harvested and delivered? Sure. He ordered 30 black walnut logs in August 2024, specified grain patterns, sizes, everything. We tagged each log with serial numbers, photographed them for our records, then loaded them onto a dedicated hauler. GPS tracked the whole route from our yard in Pennsylvania to his property in Virginia. Did the truck make any stops? Only for fuel. Driver had explicit instructions: straight delivery, no detours. Is there any possibility these logs could have come from Virginia woodland? Matthews actually laughed. Zero. These were Pennsylvania Appalachian black walnut. The growth rings, the grain pattern, even the color completely different from Virginia oak hickory. Any forester could tell you that in 5 seconds. Under cross-examination, Peterson tried to poke holes. Mr. Matthews, isn't it possible Mr. Brennan obtained additional logs from local sources? Not these logs. These are the ones I sold him, delivered to his property with my company's documentation. But you can't account for what he might have done after delivery? I can account for these 30 logs. They're the ones on that construction site being used for the pavilion. I saw the photos. Those are mine. My serial numbers. My stamps. Peterson backed off quickly. Next up was Dr. Sarah Martinez, forensic timber expert. She'd examined the logs during the injunction, conducted analysis, written a detailed report. Catherine presented her credentials: PhD in forestry from Virginia Tech, 20 years with the USDA Forest Service, expert witness in over 50 timber theft cases. Dr. Martinez, what did you find when you examined the pavilion construction materials? Black walnut, Juglans nigra, harvested from northern Appalachian forest. Growth ring analysis indicates Pennsylvania or possibly southern New York origin. Definitely not local Virginia woodland. How certain are you? Completely certain. The growth patterns, wood density, even trace mineral content, all inconsistent with local trees. These logs came from at least 300 miles north of Riverside Meadows. She pulled up slides showing microscopic wood structure, growth ring patterns, density measurements. The jury looked lost but convinced. Furthermore, Dr. Martinez continued, the logs show evidence of professional commercial harvest and processing, controlled drying, uniform dimensions, commercial milling marks. This wasn't someone cutting down trees in their backyard. This was professional forestry operation. Peterson barely touched her on cross-examination. You don't attack expert witnesses when they've buried your case. Then came Tom Whitaker. He walked to the stand looking like a man who'd aged 5 years in 5 months. Gray at the temples now, lines around his eyes deeper, but his voice was steady. Mr. Whitaker, Catherine began, you served on the Riverside Meadows HOA board, correct? For 8 years, until I resigned in January. Why did you resign? Because I couldn't be part of what Diane was doing anymore. Catherine pulled up the first email. Can you tell the jury about this message from Miss Carlisle dated the 18th of November 2024? Tom read it aloud. We need to move quickly before he gets those logs secured. If we wait, he'll build something that violates our aesthetic standards, and we'll have to fight him anyway. Better to remove the temptation. What did you understand that to mean? That she wanted to take his logs before he could protect them or use them. Did you object? I did. So did Martha Reynolds. We said it was illegal, that we had no authority. Diane said we had emergency environmental powers under the bylaws. Did you believe that? No. I looked up the bylaws. There's nothing about confiscating private property. Catherine showed more emails. The planning, the coordination with David Carlisle, the fake environmental assessment. At any point, did Miss Carlyle suggest contacting actual forestry professionals? No, she said we didn't need outside experts, that the board had authority to make determinations. Did anyone suggest contacting Mr. Brennan directly? Martha did. She said we should at least ask him for his documentation before we took anything. Diane shut that down immediately. Under cross-examination, Peterson tried to suggest Tom had personal grudges, financial motivations, reasons to lie. Mr. Whitaker, isn't it true you and Miss Carlyle had disagreements about other board matters? We disagreed about a lot of things, mostly about her using the HOA like a personal fiefdom. Isn't it true you're testifying because you want revenge? Tom leaned forward. I'm testifying because I watched her steal from someone, and I was too much of a coward to stop her. This is me trying to make that right. The courtroom was silent. No further questions. Peterson said quietly. Day 2 brought the security footage. Catherine had it professionally enhanced, cleaned up, made crystal clear. The jury watched in silence as grainy nighttime footage showed 2 men approach my property, cut the camera wires with professional efficiency, then systematically load my logs onto a flatbed truck. 40 minutes of organized theft, all captured from a cloud backup they didn't know existed. When it finished, Catherine let the silence stretch out. That footage was recorded at 2:37 a.m. on the 14th of January 2025, less than 48 hours after Miss Carlyle sent the email saying, "Make sure the crew moves fast." She pulled up David Carlyle's deposition transcript. Mr. Carlyle admitted under oath that his mother called him 2 days before this footage was recorded, that she told him to have the crew ready for a Thursday morning operation. That's not environmental protection. That's coordinating a heist. The defense tried to pivot to make it about HOA authority and community protection, but you could see the jury wasn't buying it. Not after watching that footage. Diane took the stand on day 3. She walked to the witness box like she was going to a funeral, sworn in, sat down, folded her hands in her lap. Her attorneys had clearly prepared her every answer, measured, careful, defensive. Catherine started slow, building the foundation. Miss Carlyle, how long have you been president of Riverside Meadows HOA? 12 years. In that time, have you ever confiscated property from a resident's private land? Pause. This was the first instance requiring such action. Requiring? What made it necessary? Reports of environmental violation. Illegal harvest from protected woodland. Who reported this? A concerned resident. Name? I don't recall specifically. Catherine pulled out documents. According to board minutes, the first mention of Mr. Brennan's timber was in a closed executive session on the 10th of November 2024. No resident reports are mentioned. The concern was raised by you. Diane's jaw tightened. I may have noticed it first, yes. And what was your concern exactly? That materials were being stored on his property that shouldn't be there. Materials he legally purchased and had delivered? I didn't know that at the time. Did you ask him? Silence. Miss Carlyle, did you contact Mr. Brennan at any point before confiscating his property to ask where the logs came from? No. Did you request his documentation? No. Did you consult with any professional foresters or timber experts? We relied on our environmental committee. Barbara Chen, a retired dental hygienist with no forestry training? She's knowledgeable about local ecology. Has she ever assessed timber? Not professionally, but yes or no? Has Barbara Chen ever professionally assessed timber origins? No. Catherine, let that sink in, then pulled out the emails. The damning ones. The premeditation in black and white. November 18th, you wrote, "We need to move quickly before he gets those logs secured. Why the urgency? To preserve potential evidence, or to steal them before he could protect his property? That's not what I meant. December 3rd, make sure the crew moves fast. We can't give him time to lawyer up. Miss Carlyle, does that sound like someone conducting a legitimate environmental investigation? We were acting within HOA authority. You have no authority to seize private property. You're not law enforcement. You're not a government agency. You're a homeowners association. Where in the bylaws does it say you can confiscate $42,000 worth of materials from private property? We have emergency powers for environmental violations. Catherine slid the bylaws across. Show me. Point to the section that gives you that authority. Diane flipped through pages. Her hands were shaking slightly. After 2 minutes of silence, Peterson intervened. Your Honor, this is argumentative. She made the claim. Catherine said, I'm asking her to support it. The judge nodded. The witness should answer if she can. More silence. Finally, it's implied in our environmental protection duties. Implied. So you invented authority. You didn't have to take property that wasn't yours. I was protecting the community. Catherine leaned closer. Or you were punishing a resident who did something without asking your permission first? He was flouting the rules. What rule? Be specific. Which rule did he violate by storing legally purchased timber on his own property? Diane's composure finally cracked completely. He doesn't respect this community. He does whatever he wants, doesn't attend meetings, doesn't participate. He acts like the HOA doesn't exist, and that's not how communities work. The courtroom went dead silent. So this was about control, Catherine said quietly. It was about maintaining order by stealing from someone who refused to bow to your authority. That's not I didn't, Diane stopped, realizing she'd said too much. No further questions, Catherine said. The jury looked at Diane with something between pity and contempt. Her attorneys looked like they wanted to disappear. Closing arguments came on day 4. Peterson tried his best, talked about HOA responsibilities, community protection, good faith errors, but his heart wasn't in it. You could hear the resignation in his voice. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Carlyle made mistakes. She acted hastily. Perhaps her methods were flawed, but her intentions were to protect the community she served for 12 years. This wasn't malicious. It was overzealous community leadership that went wrong. Catherine's closing was devastating. She stood, looked at each juror, then began, overzealous leadership. That's what the defense calls it when someone steals $42,000 worth of property, when someone fabricates evidence, when someone coordinates a midnight theft and lies about it. She gestured to the evidence table, piled high with documents. This isn't complicated. Mr. Brennan bought timber legally. Here's proof. Miss Carlyle took it illegally. Here's proof. She lied about why. Here's proof. She coordinated the theft in advance. Here's proof. She paused. The defense wants you to believe this was a misunderstanding. But you've seen the emails showing premeditation. You've heard the testimony showing she never sought verification. You've watched the video showing organized theft at 2 a.m. She walked toward the jury box. This case is about power, about someone who believed her title. HOA president made her above the law. Who thought a clipboard and a rubber stamp were more powerful than property rights? Another pause. Your verdict will tell her whether she was right, whether titles matter more than rights, whether organized theft is okay if you call it community protection. She returned to her seat. I trust you'll tell her she was wrong. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When the bailiff called us back, my heart was hammering. Catherine squeezed my arm once, reassurance or solidarity. I wasn't sure which. The jury filed in. None of them looked at Diane. That's when I knew. The foreman stood a middle-aged black woman who'd taken detailed notes throughout the trial. On the charge of conversion of property, we fined for the plaintiff. On the charge of trespass, we fined for the plaintiff. On the charge of fraud, every count. Every single count. The judge set damages at $125,000, triple the value of the timber under Virginia's punitive conversion statute, plus my legal fees, plus future damages for business loss. But he wasn't finished. I'm also referring this matter to the Commonwealth's attorney for criminal prosecution. What occurred here transcends civil dispute. This was organized theft conducted under color of authority. Miss Carlyle, you should expect criminal charges. Diane's face went from pale to gray. Her attorneys put their hands on her shoulders, but she was already somewhere else, already seeing the rest of her life collapse. Outside, the media scrum was immediate. Cameras, lights, microphones thrust forward. "Mr. Brennan, how does it feel?" I stopped on the courthouse steps, Catherine beside me, and looked directly at the cameras. "It feels like justice was done, but this shouldn't have required a trial. It shouldn't have cost 8 months of my life. Diane Carlisle had every opportunity to do the right thing. She chose theft. Now she'll face the consequences. What's next for you? Rebuilding. And making sure this story reaches every person fighting their own HOA, because you can win, but you have to fight." 3 months later, the criminal charges came down. Grand larceny, conspiracy, fraud. Diane pled guilty in September. The deal kept her out of prison, 5 years, probation, full restitution, banned from HOA service for life, 500 hours community service. Her son David lost his contracting license permanently. The Riverside Meadows HOA was dissolved by court order, assets distributed to residents. The bylaws that had given Diane her power were invalidated. The day the paperwork finalized, I drove to the old community center. They were tearing it down, the half-built pavilion made from my stolen timber coming apart beam by beam. I stood there, watching the excavator work, hands in my pockets, feeling something I hadn't felt in a year: peace. Some of the timber was salvageable. Most wasn't damaged during construction, weakened by weather exposure. But that was okay. I'd already ordered fresh logs from Pennsylvania. This time, nobody was going to stop me from building what I wanted. By November, I'd finally gotten back to work. Real work, creating, not fighting. I'd salvaged some of the timber from the demolished pavilion. My timber, legally returned. The rest, I'd ordered fresh from Pennsylvania. I was building the collection I'd planned all along. Live edge tables, a statement bookcase, sculptural pieces that showed the beauty of natural grain. One afternoon, I was in the workshop sanding a tabletop when someone knocked. A woman stood there, maybe 40, nervous smile. "Mr. Brennan? I'm Sarah Chen. I live in what used to be Riverside Meadows. Come in." She looked around at the half-finished pieces. "This is beautiful. Thanks. What can I do for you?" "I just wanted to thank you for fighting back. My husband and I, we got fined so many times by Diane. Stupid things. Garden decorations, porch furniture, the color of our mailbox we were about to sell just to get away from her." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. Because now she's gone. And we're staying. And it's because you didn't back down." After she left, I stood in the doorway of my workshop, looking out at the property where it all started. The gate was fixed now. New cameras installed, legal ones, properly permitted. The timber was stacked, again, properly secured, ready to become art. I thought about the fight. 8 months of stress, legal bills, sleepless nights. Was it worth it? I looked at the wood, smelled the sawdust, felt the weight of tools in my hands. Yeah, it was worth it. Because some things are worth fighting for. Property rights, justice. The principle that no one, not even someone with a clipboard and a title, gets to steal from you and call it authority. I went back inside and got to work. The first table from the reclaimed timber sold 2 weeks later to a collector in DC for $18,000. More than twice what I'd expected. When I delivered it, she ran her hand along the live edge and said, "There's a story in this wood, isn't there?" "Yeah," I said. "There is." "Will you tell it?" So I did. The whole thing. The theft. The fight. The verdict. She listened in silence. When I finished, she said, "This isn't just furniture. It's proof that fighting back matters." I'd never thought of it that way. But she was right. Every piece I make from that timber carries the weight of what happened. A reminder that justice isn't guaranteed, it's fought for. That property rights mean nothing if people aren't willing to defend them. 3 months later, I got a letter. Not from a lawyer or the court, from a man in North Carolina who'd read about my case. "Mr. Brennan, my HOA is trying to do something similar. They're claiming my shed violates covenants and threatening confiscation. After reading about your fight, I'm not backing down. I'm hiring a lawyer and standing my ground. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I pinned the letter to my workshop wall. Then I got back to work. Because the fight isn't over. It's never really over. There's always another Diane Carlisle out there. Always another HOA drunk on petty power. Always another person who needs to see that standing up is possible. And maybe, just maybe, my story will help them do it. That's worth more than any table I'll ever build.